What's going on, guys? Joe Strada with Unleashed Strength back at the gym again. It's empty, it's quiet, still sad, but you know, we're still under lockdown. Still got the quarantine going on. Today I want to direct the video to people who are used to using heavier weights during their workouts, but for some reason at home, whether they have limited amount of weights or they have equipment that can't quite handle the amount of weight they're used to using, and talk about some techniques and variations that you can use in your programming while at home, while using limited equipment to make your workouts and exercises more difficult and challenging. You can really make some awesome improvements with these variations and techniques. And when you come back to your normal weights again, you hopefully see some great carryover to your main exercises. So you can also use these tips and techniques on your normal programming as well once you get back to the gym. They're great tools to have in your arsenal that you can use for your personal programming regardless of your situation. If you're able to pinpoint your weaknesses in a certain lift, you can modify these variations to really target those weaknesses and blow past your plateaus. So the first thing I want to talk about is pausing. You can do it on just about any exercise you want. You can do it on the concentric or eccentric part of the motion. You can do it at any point in the movement. You can do it for as long as you want. You can throw in any number of pauses during the movement that you want, and you can really target weaknesses in the lift. Not only does it make you really control the weight in the movement, it can take the stretch reflex and rebound out of your movement and also increase the time under tension for that exercise, theoretically increasing its hypertrophic effect, muscle building. To start out, I usually like to break it up and do a pause right in the middle of the exercise. As if you're squatting, go down to the bottom and pause at the bottom. If you're benching, bring the bar down to your chest and pause right off your chest. One of the things I do recommend though is to be careful when you do pause that you're not resting. You want to keep all your muscles engaged, you want to stay tight, and you want to still be managing the load. It can be very tempting to almost let the weight rest on your chest at the bottom of a bench. Or when you're squatting, if you can squat so low that your butt's resting on your calves and you're not really maintaining that tightness. The exercise is not going to be as effective if you're using this as sort of a rest period. Instead, you should be maintaining that tightness and working on the control of the movement throughout that movement. Now, deadlifting is a little more unique situation because you're usually not controlling the lowering of the weight with as much force and effort as you are using to pull the weight off the ground. You can hold it at the top, but I prefer to hold it an inch or two off the ground or right where your sticking point on the deadlift is. You can also lower the weight very slowly and find a point in the deadlift on the way down to pause. You can even do multiple point pauses, 1, 2, 3 different pauses in the same movement. You can pause for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. You can do a whole bunch of different things to mix it up, have a lot of fun, and really increase the difficulty of the movement. Number 2, let's hop right into tempo movements. So now adding tempo to an exercise is making you do the rep for a prescribed amount of time. Not the exercise for a certain amount of time, but the actual rep itself. So say I have a 303 tempo on a bench press. That means I'm going to take the weight and come down to my chest for 3 count or 3 seconds. I'm not going to pause on my chest at all because that's the 0, and then I'm going to press it right back up for 3 count. Again, this increases the time under tension. You're going to have to use lighter weight because it's going to be a more difficult rep. You're increasing the muscle building or hypertrophic, is that a word, effect. You're also, again, taking any sort of rebound or stretch reflex out of the movement, and you're just working on really gaining control over that whole movement. Again, there's infinite ways that you can use your tempos. You can even throw in pauses at the bottom. You can do 3 seconds, you can do 5 seconds, you can do 10 seconds if you really wanted to. Obviously, the longer the tempo, most likely the harder it's going to be, so the lighter weight you're going to have to use. Make sure you're really taking good deep breaths between those reps because you're going to have to hold your breath for a long time. You want to stay tight when your muscles to stay engaged, and you really want to stay in control of the movement. So let's talk about just implementing different variations to your main movements. If I'm used to benching a certain amount on the actual bench press, there are certain things that I can do to make my benching at home harder if I don't have enough weight to bench at home. We can do our pauses, we can do our tempos, but what if we brought our hands closer in and worked more of a close grip bench press? If you're used to holding wider, obviously a close grip bench is going to be more difficult for you. You could bring your arms wider, you could bring your feet up, you could focus on incline. If these are all things you're not used to doing, obviously it's going to make the movement harder and you're still going to be able to get a really good workout even if you don't have a lot of weight. If you're used to doing heavy belted low bar back squats, what if you did no belts, no sleeves, no wrist wraps, high bar squats? Now throw in a pause, now throw in a tempo. All of a sudden, instead of working with 400 or 500 pounds, you're probably gonna have to reduce your numbers to 200 or 300 pounds, and you can still get a butt kicking workout that's gonna blow your quads up. Let's also talk about some accommodating resistance. Bands and chains are great accessories at the gym that you can use to change up your workouts, but at home they can really take your workouts to the next level as well without needing a ton of extra weight. I find accommodating resistance to go really well with pauses because you can usually get a really strong peak contraction, a really good squeeze at the top of your movement, and really blow that muscle up. The nice thing about these exercises as well is you're really upping the intensity with your body and really making it work. But since you're using lighter percentages of your max, you're not going to be taxing your joints and nervous system quite as much. So get creative and implement these techniques on various exercises and see what you can come up with. That being said, and as I've said before, we still want to maintain some level of consistency. If we just randomly throw in tempo squats and randomly throw in pauses and randomly throw in all these techniques without any sort of order or consistency, it's going to be hard to see that progress week to week. I recommend picking a couple main staples that you can use as your benchmarks or use as your main exercises and slowly increase them over time. All these techniques are ways that you can make your workouts harder without having to increase the weight itself. You can increase the tempo, you can increase the pause length, you can increase the number of pauses, you can decrease the amount of supportive equipment that you use. Lots of different things that you could do. So we'll briefly run over a couple things as well. So obviously to make an exercise more difficult, you can always increase the amount of weight and you can increase the amount of reps. Those are pretty basic and generally understood concepts. You can also start tracking your rest time and slowly decrease the amount of rest that you're using between sets. These will definitely make things tougher, and while slowly inching towards a cardio session, it's really going to up the intensity of your overall workout. You can also throw in another set or two to increase your work capacity over time. You can also use pre-exhaustion as a way to make your main exercise more difficult. Now, I wouldn't always recommend this in typical day-to-day strength training, but if you're at home with limited equipment, it's worth a shot. Instead of going right to your bench press as your first exercise, you can always do some sets of push-ups first to get the blood flowing, but also to tire yourself out. Not just a warm-up set of 5 or 10. What if you did 3 or 4 sets of 20 or 30 or 40 to really start to build up some fatigue? Then when you go into the bench press, now all the weight's going to feel that much heavier. If you did that consistently, hopefully by the time you got back to the gym and were using normal weights again, you would feel that much better because now you're not tired from doing the push-ups. You can go right into your bench and hit some PRs. With all that being said, I'm going to leave you with a couple things. These aren't just restricted to powerlifting barbell movements. You could be doing air squats or goblet squats with a kettlebell or a dumbbell. You could be doing pull-ups or push-ups. Really any exercise that you want to throw in some sort of variation like this, you can do, and you can make it more difficult. You don't need a lot of weight to get a really good workout. Put in the work, be patient, be consistent, be smart. These are all trying times and we don't always have access to all the equipment that we want, but we can still get really good workouts in. Sometimes that max number isn't all that matters, and these exercises offer a great chance to lighten the load, work on technique, build up our work capacity, and even build up some muscle mass. Once you get back to the gym, you might not be setting PRs right away, but if you use this time to really build a strong foundation and you build on it correctly, once you get back to normal conditions, you can definitely smash through those old plateaus and set new PRs. It's all one big game of problem solving. So let's really make the most of this time. Analyze your workouts, analyze your lifts, figure out which of these tips and techniques you can apply to your workouts, and get after it. Let's get to work, and we'll see you at the gym when this is all over, ready to set new PRs. Peace.